I sat across from him, forcing myself to keep my back straight even as a chill ran down my spine like ice water. The gold watch on his wrist caught the overhead light, flashing with the same arrogance as his voice. Your current salary exceeds the industry average by 35%, he said, swiping casually on his iPad without bothering to look up. We need to make cuts to align with profit optimization policy. My name is Camila Woods. I'm 44 years old. I've spent nearly half my life working at Westgate Dental Care in Eugene, Oregon, a place I joined right after graduating from dental school in Ohio. For 16 years, I watched this clinic grow from a two-chair setup into one of the most trusted dental offices in this city. But now, just 3 weeks after Norvell Group took over, I was sitting here listening to a stranger reduce the value of my entire career like he was managing warehouse inventory. Dr. Woods, you must understand this isn't personal, he continued. We're simply restructuring our cost base. Your new salary will go into effect next pay cycle. I took a deep breath. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The man in front of me was Nathan Breyer, Norvale's new regional director. He didn't look a day over 40. Crisp white shirt, polished leather shoes, every movement calculated like he'd just walked out of a leadership seminar. He had just informed me that my new salary would be $72,000 a year, nearly $28,000 less than what I was currently earning. So, in a matter of minutes, 16 years of experience, thousands of hours on call, and countless complex surgeries, all reduced to one swipe of a finger. You're still employed, he said, finally looking up with a smile that felt more like a pat on the head. We eliminated 2 full positions at the Bend location. Here, we're keeping everyone, of course, with reasonable adjustments. I stood, blood rushing to my face. I'll consider it, I replied, keeping my tone steady. You'll have my response by Friday. Excellent, he said, already turning back to his screen. Oh, and by the way, the training materials for the new scheduling system have been sent to your email. I stepped out of his office, my head spinning. At the front desk, Lisa, our longtime patient coordinator who'd been here over 11 years, was entering records. Her eyes met mine, full of worry. You too? She asked softly. 28% cut, and all travel stipends gone, I whispered. Mine's 20%, she whispered back, and they cut me to 4 days a week. She glanced toward the waiting room, where a little girl was cuddling a small dog sitting beside her grandmother in a wheelchair. It felt like someone had just torn a piece of my history away. This wasn't just a job. It was where I treated Max's first cavity back in 3rd grade, where Mrs. Miller once brought in homemade cookies to thank me for helping her eat again after extracting a rotated canine. I hadn't coasted on comfort for 16 years just to be tossed out by a cold transaction. I'd gone above and beyond contract terms. I'd done 3 a.m. emergency procedures for a veteran with a jaw infection. I'd driven across town to check on a denture for a homebound patient with paralysis. Norvale saw only numbers. They didn't see the wall in my office lined with Christmas cards from former patients. They didn't know I once advanced part of my paycheck to help a single mom pay for her daughter's braces because the girl was being bullied at school. They saw nothing. But I did. I got back to my apartment just before 7 p.m., legs aching but my mind burning. I tossed my white coat over the chair, sank onto the floor, and leaned against the bookshelf, staring at the group photo from the clinic when I was 30, my 3rd year at Westgate Dental Care. Back then, I wore oversized glasses, kept my hair in a tight bun, and was always the first to arrive, last to leave. I used to believe that if you worked hard, stayed honest, and treated patients with care, everything would work out, that integrity and dedication would always be valued. But Norvale Group had shattered that illusion in less than a month. I opened the fridge and poured a glass of cold water. On the door, a crayon drawing of me and a smiling boy was still taped up. To Dr. Camilla, my hero dentist, love Jonah. That boy used to cry at the mere sight of a dental drill. It took me 3 months of patient encouragement just to get him to open his mouth without shaking. And now, Norvale wanted me to optimize chair time, meaning skip the comforting, shorten consultations, and finish procedures in under 30 minutes. The next morning, I arrived earlier than usual. In the break room, I found Dylan, the youngest dentist recently transferred from a Norvale location in Idaho, sitting with a breakfast burrito and a notebook scribbled with red underlines. "Studying for your licensure again?" I joked as I poured coffee. "Nope," Dylan said with a dry smile, holding up the notebook. "These are my weekly performance metrics. Number of successful upsells, whitening referrals, how often I suggest Invisalign, even if the patient didn't ask." I frowned. "You mean you're required to push services the patient never requested?" "Not just push," Dylan whispered. "Convince. They want us to stimulate latent demand." My throat tightened. The way Norvell treated patients wasn't any different from how mall kiosks pushed products onto unsuspecting shoppers. I stepped outside into the back lot and called the only person I knew who might understand how I felt: Patrick Grady, the founder of Westgate, and the man who had interviewed me 16 years ago. After selling the practice to Norvale, he'd retired to a quiet lakeside town called Clearfield, living simply and far from dentistry. The phone rang twice before I heard his voice. "Karila, Lord, I can hear it in your voice already. Sorry for calling out of the blue, but I need to hear something real." I told him about the meeting with Nathan, about the salary cut and worse, the way they were turning dental care into a cash grab. "I had no idea it had gotten this bad," he sighed, his tone heavy. "I sold the practice because I believed what they promised. They said they'd preserve the culture, keep the core team intact. Hearing this now feels like I sold the soul of the place." I bit my lip, trying not to let the frustration spill over. "I'm thinking about leaving. Not because of the money. I just can't stand watching people be treated like revenue targets. But I don't know what comes next." There was a pause on the other end. Then he spoke. "Camilla, you have two things no corporation can buy: the trust of your community and a conscience. You can walk away and build again, on your own terms." That sentence lit a flame in me that had been smoldering for days. I sat still a little longer, then looked around my apartment. The diplomas on the wall no longer felt like trophies. They were reminders that I had once fought for a dream of my own. That evening, I sat on the living room floor, facing my laptop with Zillow open to the search bar. Commercial Dental Office, Eugene, Oregon. What had been just a fleeting thought after my call with Grady had now ignited into a burning idea. Why not open my own practice? A place with no upsell quotas, no performance tracking systems, just a dentist, patience, and trust. I typed in a new search keyword: lease ready plus plumbing installed. After nearly an hour of scanning, I paused at a picture. An old pediatric office space, located on Appleton Street, just 10 minutes drive from Westgate. The light blue walls, large windows looking out onto a row of birch trees. Most importantly, the plumbing, electrical, and layout were already set. I wrote the address in my notebook and then pulled up Olivia's number, our clinic's assistant for 7 years, now on maternity leave. "Camila, wow, it's late." "What's going on?" she answered. "I'm planning to open my own practice, Olivia, and I need help reworking the internal processes." "The part you always hated?" There was silence for a moment, then her laugh crackled through the phone. "I knew it from the start. I told my husband, if anyone's going to stand up against Norvale, it's going to be you." "Then, if I go through with this, would you come back after your maternity leave?" "I'll open the door, I'll walk right in." The next morning, I went into the clinic as usual, but everything felt different. I looked around, and it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like saying goodbye. My familiar hands, which once eagerly filled out patient charts, now quietly checked names of the patients I had to inform first before I left. While washing my hands between 2 extraction procedures, I caught Ava's gaze, the chair assistant who'd been here for 5 years, her eyes full of suspicion. "Are you leaving?" she asked quietly as I stepped into the hallway. I froze. "How did you know?" "Since you left the meeting the other day, your face has changed. And yesterday I overheard Lisa say you were looking for new office space. I sighed. It seemed like the secret couldn't last much longer. Yeah, but don't tell anyone just yet. I won't, Ava shrugged. But if you need someone to clean up and assist, I'm in. Later that day, I met with the landlord in Appleton. He was a retired dentist looking to rent out the old space. After nearly an hour of conversation, I signed a temporary agreement to hold the place, leaving a small deposit. The old sign reading Clear Care Pediatrics was taken down the following afternoon, leaving a blank canvas, waiting for a new name. That evening, under the soft glow of the living room light, I jotted down 3 names on a piece of paper: Maple Dental Group, Eugene Dental Studio, and the third, Willow and Pine Dental. I circled the last one. On Thursday morning, I printed my resignation letter, placed it in an envelope, and tucked it into my purse. I was sure of my decision. But I wasn't ready to hand it in just yet. I needed more time to secure my base, especially knowing Norval wouldn't let me leave quietly. When I prepared to head into my afternoon appointment, I spotted a familiar patient, Martha Simmons, 78 years old, sitting in the waiting room. She smiled when she saw me, handing me a small bag of homemade seed cookies. I heard you're not staying here much longer. Don't worry. Wherever you go, I'll follow. These teeth were saved by you in 2010, and I don't trust anyone else. I froze. I hadn't told anyone outside of Ava and Olivia, and now the rumor had spread to the patients. As I returned to my office, an email from Nathan popped up on my screen. Urgent meeting, 9 a.m. tomorrow, attendance. I knew it. He had smelled it out already. The next morning's meeting went exactly as I expected. Not for a discussion, but a warning. Nathan sat at the head of the table, his hands clasped, chin slightly raised as though he could already smell the rebellion in the air. We've discovered key personnel contacting patients outside of the prescribed scope, he said, his voice flat. Additionally, there are signs that internal information has been leaked, affecting Norvale's image in the community. His eyes were fixed on me, though he didn't mention my name. I just smiled, saying nothing. I had never contacted any clients, never sent an email or posted anything online. But I knew the rumors had already spread, and they were getting anxious. That afternoon, I opened a patient file to prepare for treatment for young Naomi, a regular from 4 years ago. On the screen, the responsible dentist now read, Dr. Morris. I frowned. I opened 4 more files, all with the same result. My name was being erased from patient records without notice. I stepped into the hallway and stopped Lisa, who was walking by. Has the system been updated? What do you mean? Doctor assignments. My name's been removed from almost all of the long-term patient records. She went pale. I thought you requested it. The system got the order from corporate headquarters this morning. I don't have control over it. A chill ran down my spine. They were cutting me off from all my relationships before I even left. The next day, on my way to the clinic, I stopped at the gas station. While filling up, Mrs. Edith, an 85-year-old patient who had been with me since my early days at Westgate, came up to me, gripping her walker. Camilla, she whispered, I heard you're opening a new place. Who told you that? I asked, surprised. My daughter saw a post in the community Facebook group. Everyone's saying if you open, they're all coming to you. I smiled. I can't confirm anything yet, but thank you for trusting me. Trust? She chuckled. My dentures? You made those for me. I'm eating Texas barbecue thanks to them. That's trust you can't buy. Later that afternoon, as I was explaining a treatment plan to a new patient, Nathan unexpectedly appeared at the door, clipboard in hand. I need to observe this procedure, he said curtly. I glanced at the patient, a young man looking anxious. This is a private practice, and having someone unfamiliar present without prior notice could make the patient uncomfortable. I'm the regional manager. I have the right to check service quality, he replied coldly. The rest of the afternoon was spent with him shadowing me like a ghost, taking notes, checking the clock, listening to every word I said. Every time I recommended a wait-and-see approach instead of immediate treatment like whitening or veneers, he frowned. When Mrs. Carver, one of my longtime patients since 2009, entered, I knew this was going to be tricky. I noticed my cleaning cost went up nearly $30.00 since the last visit, she said. There was no prior notice. I nodded. That's a new adjustment from Norvale, but I'll make sure you only get the services you actually need. I trust you, Camilla. If you say I don't need it, then I won't do it. Right then, Nathan barged in. Hello, I'm Nathan, the management director. We're recommending a new enhanced cleaning package that includes a two-step polish and fluoride rinse. I cut him off. Mrs. Carver doesn't need that package. Her dental record has remained in good shape, and there's no indication for that procedure in the last 3 years. Nathan shot me a glance, but said nothing more. Mrs. Carver just looked at him, then turned to me. Where you go, I'll follow. That evening I received a text from Ava. They just sent out an internal memo. Anyone who discloses information to patients about leaving will be terminated immediately. Attached was an email from corporate. I stared at the screen. They were squeezing me out step by step, thinking they could break me. My last day at Westgate began with a chill in the air, but it wasn't just the weather outside. I walked into the clinic ready for my goodbyes, but instead, Lisa handed me a small piece of paper. Camila, management wants to see you at 10 a.m., no reason provided. I nodded my thanks without asking further. That familiar feeling crept back in, the quiet, calculated setup that Norvale used when they wanted to push someone out without leaving a legal trace. At exactly 10 a.m., I knocked on the conference room door. Nathan was already seated at the head of the table, hands folded, his chin tilted slightly upward as if he could already smell the resistance in the air. Camila, Nathan said with a forced smile, thank you for arriving on time. This is a brief meeting to finalize your termination. I sat down quietly, opening my notebook and pulling out a pen. Before you sign the termination papers, the lawyer spoke up. We need you to review this document. She slid a thick stack of papers towards me. The first page clearly stated, non-compete agreement, 20-mile radius, 12-month duration. I raised an eyebrow. I never signed any non-compete agreement. You might have forgotten, the lawyer responded flatly. This clause was included in the employee transition paperwork when Norvale acquired the system last March. I pulled a thin folder from my bag, copies of all the documents I had signed during the transition. This is an electronic printout of the documents I kept, verified by my attorney, Evan Rockwell. There's no such clause. The man on the other side of the table raised his eyebrows. Nathan looked at the lawyer, clearly uncomfortable. She took my copy and flipped through a few pages. Although the clause isn't explicitly stated, it could be implied as part of internal policy. I'm afraid not, I replied calmly. Under Oregon law, any restrictive employment clauses must be clearly outlined and require independent signature consent. Particularly in healthcare, courts tend to dismiss vague agreements when patient welfare is at stake. There was a pause on their end. I leaned back in my chair. Also, I continued, my new clinic, if you're still uncertain, has been legally registered. My professional license has been approved. I've signed a 5-year lease, and I've submitted my operational permit application last week. You just confirmed you're opening a competing practice, Nathan raised his voice. And I'm not denying that, I replied firmly, because I haven't violated any clauses. The lawyer glanced at the HR director. The older man sighed. Then, he said, we may offer a neutral solution. I'm listening, I replied, maintaining my calm tone. You agree not to contact any of your former patients directly for 30 days. In return, Norvale will not pursue legal action or restrict the expansion of your clinic. I paused for a few seconds. The agreement didn't hinder anything. Those who wanted to follow me had already reached out. I agree. The revised documents were typed up on the spot. I signed, they signed, no handshakes. As I left the meeting room, Nathan called after me. Well, good luck. I didn't turn around. I don't need luck. I have patience, a community, and integrity. 3 things you can't buy with money. I returned to the office, shut down my computer for the last time, packed a few photos, and the old clock I used to hang in treatment room 2. Just as I stepped out to my car, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Lisa. Nathan just called the regional board. She's just one dentist. What impact can she have by opening a new practice? I smiled and texted back, just wait and see. We completed the final steps for the grand opening of Willow and Pine Dental just 17 days after I officially left Westgate. Everything happened so fast that I barely had time to worry, and maybe because I didn't allow myself to stop. The old pediatric office space was renovated neatly within a week. The walls were repainted in a soft white olive tone. New recessed LED lighting was installed, and the smell of fresh paint was handled with an industrial air purifier that Ava's husband helped me set up. The first dental chair arrived on the 8th day. From that moment, every small piece of the dream began to take shape clearly. Digital X-ray machines, supplies organized according to OSHA standards, and a wooden sign reading Willow and Pine Dental hung proudly in front of the main door. Lisa returned to work as the receptionist just 3 days after I left Westgate. In her resignation letter, she stated that the reason for leaving was a toxic environment, an unethical operational structure. She submitted her resignation the moment the reception desk at the new office was set up. Next came Dylan, the young dentist who had been forced to upsell unnecessary treatments. I offered him the role of partner, sharing patients and managing the clinic together. He paused for 3 seconds before nodding. I'd rather be in a place with ethics than KPIs. Ava, without saying a word, showed up one Saturday evening with a toolbox, a new uniform, and a large coffee mug. She said, "I turned down the raise at the old place. I want to work where patients aren't treated like billing codes." I didn't hire an advertising agency. I just called about 20 close patients, those who needed regular follow-ups. I made it clear the clinic was in a trial phase. There might be some hiccups. The smell of fresh paint might linger. But if they needed me, I'd be there. The opening day was on Monday at exactly 8 a.m. By 7:30, I was brewing coffee in the break room, my hands trembling slightly from the anticipation. Dylan was checking the patient management software, and Lisa was organizing the appointments. Ava came in from the back door, her eyes wide as she looked out the front window. "Mila, you need to come see this." I walked up to the front door and froze. A line of people stretched from the entrance, spilling out onto the sidewalk. There were pet owners holding babies, walking dogs, carrying old files, some even with paper bags in hand. Even Mrs. Edith, sitting in her wheelchair, was pushed by her daughter. They weren't laughing loudly, filming like at a usual grand opening event. They were simply standing there, quietly, patiently, as if waiting for something far more important than a regular dental appointment. I stepped outside, my heart pounding. Mrs. Martha Simmons, the one who had brought the seed cookies the other day, walked up to the front of the line. She had an envelope in her hand. She handed it to me. "Here's a copy of my dental records. I'm not sure if the old clinic forwarded them, so I brought my own. I go with the doctor, not the brand." Dylan stood frozen. Lisa had tears in her eyes. Ava sighed softly as though releasing a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying. I opened the door wider and smiled. "Come in, Willow and Pine Dental is officially open." By noon, we had already registered more than 90 patients, over half of them from Westgate. One family brought pizza for the staff, an elderly couple brought a bouquet of wildflowers. Kids giggled as they picked out reward stickers after their cleanings. In the afternoon, Lisa handed me a handwritten note. "Camila, 17 people asked for routine appointments today. 12 people requested to be seen only by Dr. Camila or Dylan." I sat down in a chair, exhaling deeply. No need for big billboards, no need for marketing gimmicks, just trust. Something Norvale underestimated more than anything. In less than a month after opening, Willow and Pine Dental had exceeded all expectations. We had registered over 760 patients. Almost 500 of them were former clients from Westgate. The rest came from other clinics, through word of mouth, social media, and community stories that spread like wildfire. Ava joked. Not everyone who came in chose to start treatment right away. Some simply asked, "Is Camila the one who used to work at Westgate?" Some came carrying old files. saying, "We don't trust that place anymore." A few even brought bills from Norvale, asking if it was true that they had to pay $390, 0 cents, just for a routine cleaning. I didn't answer. I just pointed to the price list hanging by the reception desk. Clear, transparent, no fine print. They understood. 1 week before the end of the first month, I received a message from an unfamiliar number. "Uncle's coming to the clinic this afternoon. No preparation needed, just wants to see it for himself." It was Patrick Grady. At exactly 3:10 p.m., he arrived. Thinner than before, wearing a gray wool hat and a gray overcoat. He stood at the door for a while, his eyes scanning the reception desk, the thank you notes framed on the walls, and the fully booked appointment schedule behind Lisa. I stepped out to greet him, and he smiled lightly. "I've been following the community reports, but seeing it in person is different." I showed him around each room. Ava greeted him with a tight hug. Dylan shook his hand, smiling warmly. In the break room, he saw the bulletin board filled with handwritten thank you notes, before and after treatment photos, and a note from Lisa that read, "We're doing the right thing." We sat down in the small office at the back. He sat quietly for a moment before speaking. "I was wrong to sell Westgate. I was wrong to believe that a big system would preserve what we built. I should have talked to you first, Camilla." I stayed silent for a moment, then gently shook my head. "If you hadn't sold it, I probably wouldn't have dared to step out of my comfort zone. I owe you for both the right things and the wrong ones." He nodded. "Then consider this my debt to you. How about a thank you dinner?" I smiled. That evening, I received a strange email with the subject, "Request to meet, discussion of Eugene Market Strategy." Sender Breyer, Regional Director, Norvale Dental Group. I sat in silence for a few seconds. After everything he had done, removing my name from patient files, monitoring every appointment, trying to stop me from opening my practice, now he was using the word discussion. I forwarded the email to Lisa with a short note. "Confirm the meeting with him, Tuesday, 2 p.m., room 2. As scheduled, Nathan showed up, his suit still perfect, shoes still polished. But this time, his gaze wasn't filled with contempt as it had been before. I extended my hand politely. "What would you like to discuss?" He took a folder from his bag. "Norvale is reevaluating its operational model in Oregon. We want to understand why Willow and Pine has been able to attract such a large number of patients in such a short time, especially former Westgate patients." "Because we don't sell trust," I answered bluntly, "and we don't force people to buy things they don't need." He tried to hide his discomfort as he opened the file. "I've been instructed to contact independent practices in the area to discuss potential collaboration or merger, if suitable." I smiled faintly, pulling out the expansion plan for next year from my drawer, including the plan to open another branch in Springfield. Whereas I'm about to open my second location, and I have no intention of merging with any system. He nodded, his voice softer now. "Nothing personal, just business." I looked him squarely in the eye, smiling. "Exactly, and in business, transparency is the most valuable asset. You don't have it." The meeting ended in silence. As he walked out the door, I added, softly, "If you still doubt the impact of one person leaving a big system, check Westgate's appointments this week." I closed the door. No need for revenge, no need for declarations of war. I just needed success, and that spoke louder than anything. Camilla's story is proof that reputation doesn't come from big brands, but from trust built over time. When pressured, she didn't retaliate with anger, but with steady action, creating a new model based on old values, kindness and transparency. In an increasingly commercialized world, Camilla reminds us that credibility can't be bought, and the right decision often begins with a courageous refusal. Success doesn't need to be loud, it just needs the right people and the right values. What do you think of Camilla's decision and how she faced injustice? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more impactful stories about life, family, and the journey to reclaim self-worth.